found troubling. And just from a clarity's sake, did you say that ending the life of a child is good for the labor force participation rate? Giving someone the access, let me just quote what you said, that ultimately increasing access to abortion and reproductive health care allows for our labor force participation rate to continue to increase, that denying women access to abortion increases their odds of living in poverty or need for public assistance. As a guy who was raised by a single mom who worked long hours to keep us out of poverty, I think people can disagree on the issue of being pro-life or pro-abortion, but in the end, I think framing it in the context of labor force participation it just feels calloused to me. I think finding a way to have a debate around abortion in a meeting for the economic stability of our country is harsh, and I'm just surprised that we find ways to weave into every facet of our lives such an important and painful reality for so many people, to make it sound like it's just another 0.4% added to our labor force participation as a result of the issue of abortion. Just, to me, seems harsh. Well,
I certainly don't mean to say what I think the effects are in a manner that's harsh. What we're talking about is whether or not women will have the ability to regulate their reproductive situation in ways that will enable them to plan lives that are fulfilling and satisfying for them. And one aspect of a satisfying life is being able to feel that you have the financial resources to raise a child, that the children you bring into the world are wanted, and that you have the ability to take care of them. In many cases, abortions are of teenage women, particularly low income and often Black, who aren't in a position to be able to care for children, have unexpected pregnancies, and it deprives them of the ability often to continue their education, to later participate in the workforce. So there is a spillover into labor force participation, but it means that children will grow up in poverty and do worse themselves.
Thank you. Let me just reclaim my time on the topic.
This is the truth.
I'll just simply say that as a guy raised by a Black woman in abject poverty, I'm thankful to be here as a United States Senator first. Second thing I'd say is that we can at the same time have a real conversation about increasing child tax credits that are refundable. We can at the same time have a conversation about the opportunity to have a more robust system around the issue of child care, of early childhood education. We could have a conversation about financial literacy. There's a lot of ways for us to address the issue about the child that's here. So that just, to me, was unusually piercing comments that you made. I will say on my prepared question that in face of persistent inflation, I think caused in many ways by the $2 trillion package that was approved in early 21, that was followed by a $1.2 trillion package that both combined led to an overheating of our economy, slowing growth caused by a backlog pipeline driven by too much demand with too little supply, followed by a lagging labor force participation rate. People aren't coming back to work, though we have millions of jobs that are open. The atrophying of the muscle for work seems to be endemic in this current Biden administration's approach, coupled with government debt that is now well over $30 trillion and growing very fast. How do we justify looking at the Build Back Broker plan or the Build Back Better plan and saying to ourselves that more money in the economy is going to help us to reduce the inflationary effect, where the average person today is paying $4.37 for the average 87 unleaded gas?
Well, the American Rescue Plan, that's not Build Back Better, was designed to mitigate what at the time seemed to be the most significant and worrisome risk facing the economy, which was that unemployment would stay high, the labor market would remain weak, and especially low-income households would lose the roofs over their heads and be unable to put food on the table and be permanently scarred by the pandemic. And at the time, forecasts were really quite dire, including those of the Congressional Budget Office and outsiders, and no one really knew just how significant the risks were. The American Rescue Plan was a large package. It was targeted at the needs, particularly of those who were most severely affected by the pandemic. And when you look at the state of the labor market, as you described, the fact that it is so strong, maybe overly strong, overly hot, is in a way a sign of the success of that program and mitigating what could have been another Great Depression, a risk that we should not have been willing to take. Now, inflation is clearly a problem.
I think Chairman Brown's going to tell us both we're out of time. So let me just finish with this, just perhaps.
Statement, not a question, correct? Senator?
Perhaps, yes, of course. Perhaps better say what I said, which is number one, the $1.9 trillion rescue plan, followed by the $1.2 trillion infrastructure plan, with another BBB on the table for more spending, was the delineation between the three categories of spending that I believe two already passed that have overheated the economy, and then having a third package on the table to once again continue to provide more stimulus to an economy that can't take the stimulus that's already been provided.
If you look at the president's budget, you will see that it is fully paid for through higher tax collections, and that the budget also incorporates substantial deficit reduction.
Thank you, Senator.